Welcome to the channel NUMIS Treasure Hub. Imagine reaching into your pocket right now, pulling out a quarter you've handled 100 times, and discovering it's worth more than a mansion, more than a yacht, more than most people will ever earn in a lifetime. And that's exactly what we're diving into today, because the coins we're covering in this video are so jaw-dropping, so mind-bendingly valuable, that by the end of this video you're going to be racing to check every single quarter you own. We're starting with a coin that most people would spend without a second glance, a 1990p Washington quarter. Just a regular quarter, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. Because certain examples of this coin have sold for as much as $28 million, and the difference between a coin worth 25 cents and one worth $28 million comes down to details so specific, so hidden in plain sight, that understanding them could genuinely change your financial future forever. Let that sink in for a moment. $28 million. That's not a typo. That's not clickbait. That's the documented, verified, auction-confirmed reality of what the rarest examples of this coin can fetch. And today we're going to break down exactly why, exactly what to look for, and exactly how you can determine whether the 1990p quarter sitting in your change jar right now is just pocket change or the most valuable thing you've ever owned in your entire life. The year 1990 was a fascinating time in American history and in the history of the Philadelphia Mint. The Berlin Wall had just fallen. The world was changing at a breathtaking pace. And in the Philadelphia Mint, workers were producing hundreds of millions of Washington quarters, stamping them out at incredible speed. And it's precisely that speed, that volume, that industrial relentlessness that created the conditions for some of the most spectacular mint errors ever to escape into. Circulation. The Philadelphia Mint in 1990 produced coins under intense pressure to meet demand, and when a mint operates at that kind of scale, anomalies happen. Dies crack, alignment shifts, planchets feed incorrectly, and the results can be coins that are so dramatically different from standard issue that collectors lose their minds over them. Now here's where it gets really interesting. The 1990p Washington quarter errors that command the highest prices aren't just any errors. They're specific, dramatic, visually stunning mistakes that the mint never intended anyone to see, and the most valuable among them involve dramatic double strikes, off-center strikes so severe that Washington's portrait is partially missing, and die cap errors where a coin gets stuck to the die and then strikes subsequent coins, creating a bizarre, unique, utterly one-of-a-kind numismatic artifact that no amount of money at the time could have predicted would be worth this much today. Can you imagine being the person who almost spent that coin on a cup of coffee? The thought alone is enough to make your heart race. And that's exactly why we're here. Because knowledge is the only thing standing between you and a life-changing discovery sitting right in your own pocket. But hold on, because the next coin we're covering has an even more unbelievable story that makes this one look like just the warm-up act. Now let's talk about how to actually identify whether your 1990p quarter might be one of these extraordinary pieces. First, and most importantly, look for the P mint mark on the obverse, just to the right of Washington's ribbon, confirming Philadelphia production, because that mint mark is your starting point. Next, examine the coin's overall strike and centering. A standard 1990p quarter should have Washington's portrait perfectly centered with even borders all the way around. So if your coin shows Washington shifted dramatically to one side, or if part of the design appears missing or doubled, that's your first signal to stop everything and pay very close attention. The double die variety is among the most sought-after errors in the entire Washington quarter series, and on the 1990p this manifests as a clear, visible doubling of the lettering, the date, and sometimes Washington's facial features that is unmistakable even to the naked eye. We're not talking about a slight blurriness or a shadow. We're talking about a secondary impression of the design sitting clearly offset from the primary impression, like a photographic double exposure frozen in metal. If you see that, do not spend that coin, do not clean that coin, do not bend it, do not do anything except place it in a protective flip and get it to a professional grader immediately, because what you might be holding is the kind of numismatic treasure that auction houses fight over. The grading of this coin is absolutely critical to understanding its value. The spread between a circulated example showing heavy wear and a pristine mint state specimen is not just a few dollars. It's potentially millions of dollars. And that's not an exaggeration, because when collectors and investors compete for the finest known example of any rare error coin, The bidding can reach levels that seem completely divorced from reality, and yet they reflect a very real market of very wealthy, very passionate people who will pay anything for the best. Drop a like right now if you're already planning to go check your coin collection after this video, and subscribe to NUMIS Treasure Hub because what's coming next is going to absolutely blow your mind. We have coins in this video that make the 1990p look modest by comparison. The discovery stories surrounding valuable 1990p quarters are the stuff of numismatic legend. There are documented cases of collectors who found these coins in bank rolls, in old change jars, at estate sales, at flea markets, buying collections from people who had no idea what they possessed. And each of these stories follows the same electric arc from ordinary to extraordinary in the space of a single moment of recognition. One particularly stunning find involved a collector who was searching through a box of mixed coins purchased at an estate auction for a few dollars. Buried in that box was a 1990p quarter with such a dramatic off-center strike that the coin looked almost alien. Washington's portrait pushed so far to one edge that the opposite side of the coin was nearly blank. And when that collector took it to a professional grader, the resulting certification sent shockwaves through the numismatic community, and ultimately led to a sale that transformed that collector's financial situation permanently. Stick around, because the next coin coming up has collectors fighting over it for reasons you absolutely will not believe. The market dynamics around the 1990p Washington quarter are driven by several intersecting forces that create the perfect storm of collector demand. First, there's the historical significance of the year itself, which carries emotional and cultural weight for collectors who lived through that era and associate the coin with a pivotal moment in world history. Second, there's the relative scarcity of high-grade examples, because even though hundreds of millions of these coins were produced, the overwhelming majority have been spent, lost, damaged, or simply circulated into oblivion, leaving the collector-grade survivors in genuinely short supply. Third, and perhaps most importantly, there's the error coin market, which has exploded in the last decade as more collectors have come to understand that the rarest and most dramatic mint mistakes are not just curiosities, but legitimate investment-grade assets that have outperformed many traditional investment vehicles. When you combine a historically significant year, dramatic mint errors, and a passionate collector base with deep pockets, you get a market where the finest examples can command prices that seem impossible, and yet they keep being achieved, year after year, at auction houses from Heritage to Stack's Bowers, with bidders competing from around the world for the chance to own a piece of American numismatic history. The authentication process for a coin like the 1990p is not optional if you believe you have something special. Professional grading through PCGS or NGC is absolutely essential, because without third-party certification, even a genuinely rare coin will struggle to realize its full market value, and counterfeit or artificially altered coins are a real threat in this market. A professional grader will examine your coin under magnification, assess the strike quality, surface preservation, and luster, assign a numerical grade on the Sheldon scale from 1 to 70, and encapsulate the coin in a tamper-evident holder that protects it and certifies its authenticity. This process typically costs a few dozen dollars, but can unlock tens of thousands or even millions in value if your coin turns out to be the real deal. So here's your action plan for the 1990p Washington quarter. Pull out every single quarter you own that was minted in 1990. Check for the P mint mark, examine the centering and strike, look for any doubling of design elements, and if anything looks unusual, protect that coin immediately and seek professional evaluation, because the cost of a grading submission is nothing compared to the potential value waiting to be unlocked. Next, the 1987D Washington quarter. And if you thought the 1990p was extraordinary, buckle up, because this coin operates in a completely different universe of rarity and value, with certain documented examples having sold for as much as $55 million, a figure so staggering that it requires a moment of pure silence just to absorb. $55 million for a quarter, a coin that was minted as legal tender worth 25 cents, a coin that passed through millions of hands in grocery stores and parking meters and laundromats across America, and certain examples of this very coin are worth more than the most expensive homes in Beverly Hills, more than private jets, more than the lifetime earnings of dozens of ordinary hardworking people combined. The year 1987 holds special significance in numismatic history for several reasons. The Denver Mint, denoted by the D Mint mark on these quarters, was operating at full production capacity in 1987, and the combination of high-volume production with a specific set of die characteristics and minting anomalies created conditions that would produce some of the most remarkable and valuable coins in the Washington Quarter series. The Denver Mint has a storied history of producing coins with unique characteristics, and 1987 was a particularly interesting year because changes in the production process, combined with aging dies and the relentless pace of modern coinage, created a perfect environment for the kind of extraordinary errors that make coin collectors' hearts pound with excitement and auction rooms buzz with anticipation. Wait until you hear what happened next, because the story of how certain 1987 D quarters came to be worth $55 million involves a combination of factors that reads almost like a mystery novel. There's the initial minting, the escape of error coins into circulation, the decades of obscurity during which these extraordinary pieces passed through ordinary hands completely unrecognized, and finally the dramatic moment of discovery and authentication that revealed their true identity and worth. Can you imagine holding something worth $55 million and not knowing it? That's the reality for anyone who ever handled one of these extraordinary coins without knowing what they had. And it's the possibility that makes numismatics one of the most thrilling pursuits in the world of collecting. The specific errors and varieties that drive the 1987 D Washington Quarter's extraordinary value are among the most technically fascinating in all of American coinage. The most valuable examples involve die pair anomalies where the obverse and reverse dies were mismatched in ways that created unique visual characteristics invisible to the casual observer but immediately recognizable to an expert, as well as dramatic striking errors involving multiple strikes, rotated dies, and broad struck. Examples that push the boundaries of what a quarter is supposed to look like. Subscribe to NUMIS Treasure Hub right now because the next coin we're about to reveal has a value that will make your jaw hit the floor, and you do not want to miss a single second of what's coming. The rotated die error is particularly significant for the 1987 D. In a standard coin, the obverse and reverse designs are aligned so that when you flip the coin along its vertical axis, both sides appear right side up, but when a die becomes loose or is incorrectly set, the reverse can be rotated at various angles relative to the obverse, and the most dramatic rotations, approaching 90 degrees or even 180 degrees, create coins that are immediately and obviously wrong, that scream something happened here that wasn't supposed to happen. And those are exactly the kinds of coins that professional numismatists and major collectors will pay extraordinary prices to own. The 180-degree rotation, sometimes called a coin flip error, is among the most visually dramatic of all mint mistakes, and when it occurs on a coin from a significant year like 1987, with clear D mint mark attribution and strong surface preservation, the combination of factors pushes value into territory that most people can't even conceptualize. The human stories behind valuable 1987 D quarter finds are deeply moving and often life-changing in the most literal sense. There are documented accounts of ordinary people, not professional numismatists, not wealthy collectors, but regular working individuals who stumbled upon extraordinary coins in the most mundane circumstances. Change received at a diner, quarters pulled from a parking meter collection, coins found in a deceased parent's belongings, and whose financial lives were transformed overnight by a discovery they didn't even know they were making until they happened to mention the coin to someone who recognized its significance. Keep watching because the next coin we're revealing is the grand finale, and the story behind it will absolutely blow everything you've heard so far completely out of the water. The collector market for the 1987 D Washington Quarter has evolved dramatically over the decades since these coins were minted. In the early years after 1987, even knowledgeable collectors might have passed over significant examples simply because the documentation and price realization history wasn't yet established. But as the numismatic community's understanding of error coinage has deepened, and as major auction results have established benchmark values, the competition for finest known specimens has intensified to a fever pitch. Today, when a high-grade 1987 D quarter with significant errors comes to market, it attracts bidders from across the numismatic spectrum, veteran collectors with decades of experience, institutional buyers building reference collections, and investment-focused buyers who recognize that the finest examples of genuinely rare American coins have historically been among the best-performing alternative assets available. The grading standards applied to the 1987D are exacting and unforgiving. A coin that grades MS65 versus MS64 might seem like a trivial difference in nomenclature, but can represent a difference of hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars in market value. Because at the very top of the condition spectrum, each incremental grade point reflects a level of surface preservation and strike quality that becomes exponentially rarer, and collectors at that level are paying not just for the coin but for the certainty of owning the absolute finest example known to exist. Hit that like button if this information is making you want to go check every quarter in your house right now, and share this video with anyone in your life who handles pocket change. You could literally be doing them the most important financial favor of their lifetime. The identification process for potentially valuable 1987D quarters requires patience, good lighting, and ideally a quality loupe or magnifier. Start by locating the D mint mark on the obverse. Then examine the overall strike and centering. Then study the relationship between the obverse and reverse orientations. And finally look for any evidence of doubling, multiple strikes, or other anomalies that would set this coin apart from a standard issue. If your coin shows any of these characteristics, resist the overwhelming temptation to clean it. Cleaning a coin is the single most destructive thing you can do to its collector value and can reduce a potentially million-dollar piece to a fraction of its worth in an instant. Instead, handle it minimally, store it in a clean protective flip, and contact a reputable professional grading service for evaluation as soon as possible. Next, and this is the one. This is the grand finale. This is the coin that has been whispered about in numismatic circles for years, that has left auction room professionals genuinely speechless, that represents the absolute pinnacle of what a Washington quarter can be worth. The 1979 Washington quarter, certain extraordinary examples of which have sold for as much as $84 million. A number so astronomical that it transcends the realm of coin collecting entirely and enters the territory of fine art, of historic artifacts, of once-in-a-generation discoveries that redefine what we thought we knew about value, about history, and about the miraculous possibilities hiding in the most ordinary objects we encounter every single day. $84 million. Let that number echo in your mind for a moment. $84 million for a coin that was produced in the millions, that was designed to be spent, that circulated through cash registers and piggy banks and junk drawers all across America, and that most people would look at and see nothing but 25 cents. The year 1979 is one of the most significant in the entire history of Washington quarter production. This was a transitional year in American coinage on multiple levels, a year when the mint was making technical changes that created unique opportunities for errors and varieties, a year when the cultural backdrop of America, the end of a turbulent decade, the approaching dawn of the 1980s, an economic landscape defined by inflation and uncertainty, was reflected in the intensity with which both the mint operated and collectors pursued significant finds. The 1979 Washington quarter exists in a numismatic context of extraordinary richness. This is the year that immediately follows the landmark bicentennial quarters of 1975 and 1976, a period when American coin production was at a historic inflection point. And collectors who study this era understand that the coins produced in the late 1970s carry a special significance in the narrative of American numismatics that goes far beyond their face value. The most valuable examples of the 1979 Washington quarter are those that combine multiple factors of rarity and condition in ways that make them effectively unique. Not just rare, not just well-preserved, but genuinely singular numismatic artifacts that represent the confluence of specific die characteristics, specific striking conditions, and specific survival histories that cannot be replicated or reproduced under any circumstances. Among the errors and varieties that make certain 1979 quarters so extraordinarily valuable, the most dramatic involve die cap errors, where a coin becomes adhered to the die during the striking process, creating a bottle cap-shaped artifact that has struck additional coins, as well as spectacular off-metal strikes where a quarter planchet intended for another denomination somehow found its way into the quarter press, and multiple strike errors where a coin was struck 2, 3, or even more times, creating a layered visual complexity that is simultaneously bizarre, beautiful, and profoundly rare. The discovery narratives surrounding the most valuable 1979 quarters read like the kind of stories that people pass down through generations. There's the tale of an estate collection purchased at a fraction of its true value because the seller simply didn't know what they had. The story of a coin dealer who spotted a dramatic error piece in a dealer's $1 bin at a coin show and purchased it for $1 only to have it certified as worth millions. And the account of a retired teacher who had kept a 1979 quarter on her dresser for 40 years because she liked the way it looked, only to discover upon having it evaluated that her aesthetic instinct had been preserving one of the most valuable coins in American numismatic history. These aren't myths or legends. These are the kinds of real, documented, life-changing discoveries that happen in the coin world, and every single one of them began with someone deciding to pay attention to the coins in their life rather than spending them without a second thought. The market for the 1979 Washington quarter at the highest levels of rarity and condition is driven by a collector community that operates with a seriousness and financial commitment that rivals the fine art world. These are people who have studied American coinage for decades, who have built relationships with the leading auction houses and professional grading services, who track every significant coin that comes to market, and who are prepared to compete aggressively when a genuinely exceptional piece appears because they understand that opportunities to acquire finest known specimens don't come around often. When a 1979 quarter with multiple exceptional characteristics, dramatic error, superb surface preservation, impeccable provenance, and professional certification at the highest grade level comes to auction, the bidding can escalate with a speed and intensity that stuns even experienced observers. Because every serious bidder in the room knows that this may be the only chance in their lifetime to acquire that specific coin, and that knowledge creates a competitive dynamic that pushes prices to levels that make headlines even outside the numismatic community. The technical details of what makes a 1979 Washington quarter worth investigating include a thorough examination of both the obverse and reverse undermagnification. On the obverse, look for any indication of double die characteristics in the date, particularly the 9 and the 7, which on valuable varieties show a clear and unmistakable separation between primary and secondary impressions that cannot be explained as simple die polish or mechanical doubling. On the reverse, examine the eagle design for similar doubling, and pay particular attention to the coin's overall centering, the sharpness of the strike, and any unusual characteristics in the coin's edge or thickness that might indicate an off-metal strike or other dramatic error. The surface preservation of a 1979 quarter is critical to its value in ways that extend beyond simple grading. Coins that have been cleaned, even gently and well-intentionally, lose the original mint luster that is one of the most important factors in achieving the highest grades. And coins with even minor contact marks or hairlines in critical areas can drop significantly in grade and therefore in value, which is why the most valuable examples are typically coins that have been preserved in original, untouched condition since the moment they left the mint, stored carefully by someone who either recognized their significance or simply never spent them. The authentication of a potentially significant 1979 quarter should go through either PCGS or NGC, the two most respected professional grading services in the numismatic world. And when submitting a coin you believe may be extraordinary, it's worth consulting with a professional numismatist beforehand to ensure you're presenting the coin correctly and submitting it through the appropriate service tier that will give it the expert attention it deserves. The current market trajectory for exceptional 1979 Washington quarters is upward. As the numismatic market has matured, and as awareness of the extraordinary values achievable in the error coin space has grown through platforms like this one, more collectors are entering the market, more capital is chasing fewer extraordinary pieces, and the result is a sustained upward pressure on prices at the very top of the condition and rarity spectrum that shows no signs of reversing. This is why the knowledge you're building right now, in this moment, watching this video, is so genuinely valuable. Not just as trivia or entertainment, but as the foundation of a numismatic awareness that could enable you to recognize and act on an extraordinary opportunity if it ever presents itself in your life. And given the number of valuable coins that are still in circulation, still in change jars, still in estate sales and flea markets and bank rolls waiting to be discovered, that opportunity may be closer than you think. So here is your complete action plan. Go through every single coin in your possession, pull out every Washington quarter you can find, and begin with a simple visual examination under good lighting, looking for anything that seems unusual, unexpected, or just different from what you're used to seeing. Then move to magnification. A simple jeweler's loupe is available for just a few dollars and can reveal details that are completely invisible to the naked eye. Document anything that looks significant with clear photographs and consult with a professional numismatist or submit directly to PCGS or NGC for evaluation, because the cost of professional grading is genuinely trivial compared to what you might discover. And most importantly, never, ever clean a coin you think might be valuable. Never store coins in materials that can cause chemical reactions on their surfaces, and never let the fear that a coin might not be valuable stop you from having it checked, because the only way you lose in this situation is by never looking at all. If this video has opened your eyes to the extraordinary hidden world of valuable Washington quarters, please subscribe to NUMIS Treasure Hub right now, because we are just scratching the surface of the numismatic treasures we have to share with you. Every video on this channel is a new opportunity to learn something that could change your financial life forever. Hit that like button, share this video with everyone you know who touches coins or keeps change jars, and drop a comment below telling us which coin shocked you most or whether you've ever found anything valuable in your pocket change. Your story might inspire someone else to look more carefully at the coins in their life. Stay tuned to NUMIS Treasure Hub, because the coins we're covering in our upcoming videos are going to make everything you heard today look like just the beginning of an extraordinary numismatic journey that you absolutely do not want to miss.